Well, good evening, everyone. Today it's the last day of February 28th, 2022. I cannot believe we're already going into March. I want to welcome you to tonight's program. We have a really exceptional program in store for you, particularly if you're researching in Western Kentucky, Southern Illinois, Southern Indiana. We're going to be hearing from the folks from the Browning Family Foundation, who run a pretty amazing organization with Browning Genealogy. Before we get started, I have a little bit of housekeeping. And I just want to share with everyone, if you haven't already registered, you don't have much time left for finding your Celtic ancestors, which is throughout the month of March. So there are 5 programs. They start March 7th. They run through the 26th. They will all be recorded and they will all be available for 30 days following the live events. We are bringing 3 of the world's leading educators on Irish and Scottish research to our society, Pamela Guy Holland, Chris Patton, and Morris Gleason. And so they will be talking to us about Irish migration routes, researching in Irish records, discovering Scottish church records, Scottish marriage records. And Morris is going to be talking about a very niche subject, which I think could be very important for a lot of people, which is DNA and Irish genealogy. So I've heard people they've seen this and said, I would pay the fee just to hear Morris speak on this topic. So if you haven't signed up, now's the time to sign up, because we will be closing that registration before long here. Okay, welcome. I'm Christopher Paget. I'm the president of the Kentucky Genealogical Society. And if you're a newcomer to our society, we want to welcome you. If you've been a member since we were founded in 1973, we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary next year. We want to thank you for your membership. We are a grassroots nonprofit genealogical community of, by, and for researchers. We have no building. We are completely virtual. Our membership, now totaling nearly 1,200, is spread out all over the United States. We're in 49 states, several countries outside of the US, and throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So if you have Kentucky ancestors, or you just want to be a part of a nice genealogical group, you are welcome to join us. We're all volunteers. There's no paid employees. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we do education programs like the one that you're going to participate in this evening. We do 2 of these webinars every month, mostly focused on researching in Kentucky or genealogy methodology. We also do digitization preservation projects and digitization grants. And I'm excited this evening, you will be hearing more about this in our communications, but last week, our organization entered into a collaborative partnership with Family Search, which is the world's leading organization for family genealogy. And we are going to be partnering with Family Search to get more rare Kentucky records digitized. So we're very excited about that. You'll be hearing more about it. Our annual membership starts at $20, and it's open to all researchers, regardless if you just started yesterday or you are a professional with clients and you've been doing it for 30 years. So we welcome everyone. And if you missed last webinar, it was with one of the greats, Thomas Jones. He talked about using indirect negative evidence to prove unrecorded events. That webinar, it was recorded, and it's now available on our website for all of our members to access. You can listen to it, watch it on demand in perpetuity. It will be out there. We will be taking questions this evening, and if you have questions, all you have to do is type them into the GoToWebinar. There's a section called Questions. We'll get to as many questions as you have, so feel free to type your questions in. We are going to be hearing from, well, I want to share this. This slide was our planned speaker, which was Dr. Mark Browning, but he unfortunately had something come up, And so we actually got an upgrade. We got his sister, Janine Browning Hester, who is going to be talking to us this evening, and she's the president of the board of the Browning Family Foundation. So I'm so excited that we've got Janine, because what I have learned is that she has played a very instrumental role in everything you're going to be hearing about tonight. Okay, and Janine, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the slides over to you while I'm doing your introduction here. So let me do this real quick. Okay. Janine Browning Hester, she has put her footprint on funeral service for women, not just locally, but on a national level. She's a trailblazer in the funeral service for women. She set precedent for a woman's role in funeral services. She has guided and encouraged women who have contemplated funeral service careers and mentored many women who have chosen funeral service as their career. 37 years ago, when Jeannie entered funeral service, there were few opportunities for women in the profession. Funeral homes were just not hiring women, and she created a niche for women's role in her profession. And soon leaders in the funeral profession turned to her for advice. She has since brought her son into the Browning funeral business, and she came into it following the footsteps of her father. And what I learned was that her father, Charles Browning, and her worked together in the early 80s, and they were known throughout Indiana and in the region in the funeral profession. And what was really fascinating to me was when I was researching her, I learned that she was instrumental in the creation of a lot of what we're going to be hearing about tonight, which is the Browning Genealogy work and foundation. And I'll just share this story before I turn it over to Jeannie, which is several years ago, I was invited to speak to the Tri-State Genealogical Society in Evansville. They have their meetings at the Willard, which if any of you are ever researching in Western Kentucky, the Willard is an exceptional research library. And I'd never heard of Browning genealogy, but I went there for this lecture that I was giving. And when I drove in early that day to do some research in that library, and the librarians were wonderful. They were helping me find information on family members that I could not find in Kentucky. And these were for Kentucky ancestors that I had in places like Hancock County. And they had it though there at the Willard in Evansville. And when I talked to the librarian about some of the resources they were accessing, they said, well, these are the Browning genealogy databases. They were like, haven't you ever heard of these? And I was like, I've never heard of them. So that is what sort of prompted this talk this evening. I've been wanting to get the Browning genealogy folks to talk to our society for a little while. We got them on the program tonight, and I think you are going to be blown away at what they have not only created, but maintained, invested in. It is an amazing resource for people who are interested in learning about their family and genealogy. And so with that, Jeannie, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to give you the slide control now. And it might take a second there. And while Jeannie's pulling up her slides, I cannot say enough about how valuable I think the work that they've done is for our community. So Jeannie, your slides look beautiful. You take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Janine Browning Hester, and I'm very honored to be here tonight to share with you our databases and a little bit of the history as to how Browning genealogy and local history came to be. A little bit about the history of Browning's genealogy is there was many years ago when the funeral home was started in 1954, we were early on the funeral home scene, and so we were a very small funeral home with a lot of time on our hands, and it was before the days of the sophisticated pagers and cell phones and such. So what we were doing was we were helping families through their time in life, but we also wanted to save their death records, and so we started typing the death records from the Evansville newspapers. And so every day that the newspaper would come to the home, we would pull the obituary page out and we would type the obituary onto a 3x5 card, mainly because it was easier to file than newspaper pages. And we were also able to make our system an alphabetical searches rather than a chronological. Your newspaper is a chronological search, whereas our system was on a small 3x5 card where we could alphabetize it by the name of the person that had passed. So what we were doing we were saving lives, honoring lives, keeping their story alive by keeping their obituary in a retrievable manner. And so as we started collecting our obituaries, we didn't just type the families that Browning Funeral Home served. We searched the entire newspaper. So we followed every obituary that came out in our newspaper. And so as you see in this top picture here, that's my father there. We didn't have any money either, so we worked from a borrowed typewriter and a very inexpensive card table, and 3x5 cards were affordable, and they still are affordable. And so in the background of my father's picture in the top, there are the 3x5 drawers where we file these records. As you see, they are still filed. The old records are still filed in that manner. As the years passed, my dad started becoming the person of knowledge as far as families and records of people who had passed. And so many people reached out to him. And we had a fire at the funeral home in 1979, and it scared us so bad because we almost lost the building and would have lost the records. But so immediately we went out to search, how could we microfilm all of these? So we started microfilming these 3x5 cards, and by this time we had 300,000 3x5 cards. And so our little microfilm machine took 2 cards at a time, and every day when we didn't have a funeral, we microfilmed and we microfilmed. And so we donated that microfilm to surrounding libraries. And as the years passed, what was interesting to all of you, and it is to me too, is the librarians at our local libraries would say, Mr. Browning, your microfilm is our most used resource here at our library, and you just can't imagine there's a line to get on the microfilm machine to get your resources on the desk for the ladies and men who are researching their families. And so that was encouraging, because all of this time, this whole process, we didn't know what it was going to become. We didn't know that we were saving history and saving the story of millions of people's lives. But as time passed and we kept getting the positive remarks from the librarians, we wanted to find a way. The computer world had entered our lives in the early 1990s, and so we wanted to digitize it. So in reality, and looking back, we digitized all these records in 1999. We went backwards, okay, and digitized them. So they were up live on the internet by the end of 1999, early 2000, which was pretty remarkable for that time. Remembering all of this is non-for-profit, all volunteer, and we were just doing the work in-house ourselves. The library believed in us, and so we coupled with our Evansville Public Library, and they created a database for us, and it's the database where all these death records are. And if you can only imagine, we went back to the library. We started in 1954, but we went back to the library and went backwards in these record searches. And so we copied from the newspapers the old obituaries back to the year, the turn of the century to 1900. So we did 50 years of our work going backwards, and most of that was done in the 1980s, typing them on a 3x5 style. So when I was a little girl, I wanted to grow up to do whatever you want to do in your life. And so then I became a funeral director, and I was at funeral school in Kentucky of all places. And I didn't think I was going to have to be a typist, but my dad, when I got to that office, that's all we did was type, type, type. And so, but the beauty of it is now in the hands of anyone who accesses our website. And so the website address, I will make sure that you all have it by the time the session ends, but it is accessible and a beauty to see. Our second database was created in 2005. That is what we work in mostly now. And we created that so that we could add to and give more dimensions than just some of the death records. So as I explained our second database, you'll see how far we reach in trying to preserve history. So this is an example of what a 3x5 card looks like that we've typed through, with hundreds and hundreds and thousands and records. And this is how it's categorized. But what's unique about it is the computer system, when it was written in a computer format, it's searchable by any one of these fields that you see to the left. So you can search it by name, you can search it by residence, you can search it by funeral home, you can search it by the cemetery. So maybe your family was buried in only a Mile High Cemetery. And you think, well, I just want to see who's all buried at Mile High Cemetery. So you put in Mile High Cemetery in a date parameter, and up pops everybody who's ever been buried at that Mile High Cemetery. Or a place of work. Say, my great uncle worked at Whirlpool in Evansville, Indiana. He commuted from Henderson, Kentucky all his life. And, I just want to see his death record, or I want to know more about that. And you just put in the place of work and click up, here comes all of this information. There's a relative search on our file where all you know is a woman's name. You only knew her, as Joan Jackson. And so, you type in Joan Jackson, and up pops everybody that she was ever related to that has passed. So it really, really gives you a wealth of knowledge on beyond just that one particular name that has passed. So when you go into our website, this is kind of the interesting thing. You can type in our history site. This is where we carry the things that are more, it may be of interest to others. In addition to the deaths, there's a lot of people history in our website that will help you to understand the person and what they did through their walk through this world. When I was young and I started at the funeral home, and my dad had me typing death records every single minute of the day, I started getting a little antsy and well, more than antsy. And so I wanted to start following the marriages because, I was only in my 20s and I knew the people that were getting married more than I knew the people that were dying. And so my dad let me start saving all the marriages and the engagements. And we would cut the picture out, clip it, type it on a 3x5, paste the picture on the 3x5, and alphabetize it. So but what's neat about a marriage is when the little girl gets married, she puts in, what church, her parents, who was the wedding party. And when you're really searching someone's family, that wedding party really will help you see the family structure because of all the survivors, the little cousin of the bride. Sometimes an obituary doesn't list cousins, but those marriage announcements, when little girls get married, there's a wealth of knowledge in that marriage announcement. So I hope that everybody will try to visit some of that and look for their people because there's some really interesting things in there. So these are some of the articles that I was able to pull up by just typing in Kentucky. I wanted to know in the people study Kentucky. So I type in the word Kentucky and up pops all of these interesting vignettes about different things in Kentucky. Here's a famous musician, as you see here. And these are different vignettes of famous people from Kentucky. Like there was a dairy princess, you know. I didn't know Daviess County had dairy princesses. You know, I know Daviess County and very familiar with it, but I think that's kind of cute that there was a dairy princess there. And, you know, not only in the death records, but all these interesting vignettes of people's lives can be accessed over just a simple word search. So these again all came up of interest to all of some, you know, you as you type in the word of what you may be of interest in, and our records pull in interesting vignettes from the Evansville newspapers. And so as the years passed, we continued to want to stretch our search. We wanted to bring more things into this world of what we're doing, and so we created the BrowningGenealogy.org. If you can see it up on the screen, it's BrowningGenealogy.org. My G followed over here to the left-hand column, but it's BrowningGenealogy.org, and that's how you're going to find all of this. So I love this little picture. It shows all the counties we're following. And so we thought, you know, we want to stretch this reach. You know, our Evansville paper was just getting these counties here in southern Indiana, and so we reached out to southern Illinois, and we have a man named John Dow that works with us, and he is from Kentucky, and he goes to all of these counties here in Kentucky and asks for permission from different funeral homes if he can continue to keep their death records. And so we're accessing as much as we can, as far back as we can, as fast as we can, so that these records stay alive. So other things that we've reached out to on our ventures is this is an overview of the things that I'm going to walk you through in just a few minutes of what the Browning Family Foundation has been researching, trying to create a little bit of history for all of us, our descendants, to learn about as they grow up. So this is the homepage of the BrowningGenealogy.org. So, you know, you want to have some user friendliness to it, and so there is this is the database, and there's many databases here, and so you're going to go into what's going to interest you the most. So there is the obituary search, there is the local history search, there is the Southern Indiana, Western Kentucky, Southern Illinois search, and then down below here at the very bottom of this page, there is a really neat, beautiful overview YouTube of everything that it entails, and it gives you an easy mechanism and a learning tutorial how to search our website. This was created by Kira Long, who is with us today as a panelist, but this YouTube is a wealth of knowledge for someone who wants to get after it right away. And the nicest thing about our Browning genealogy databases is everything's free. What's so difficult, sometimes people will search and search and search, and they finally find what they were looking for, and there's some little click button, click, 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 that you got to pay and put a credit card number in there and pay for what you found. And ours is free, and we connect I always say that there's the trunk to the tree, and we are the leaves. All of the little vignettes of what we have are the leaves that came from the trunk, that came from the roots, came from the base of the tree. But all these little leaves are all of interest to some of us out there. So the Southern Indiana and Illinois database, this is a roster of the counties that we're covering, okay? And so we're reaching out as far and fast as we can to pick up other counties, mostly because when you study different geographical areas, you know, my roots are Kentucky. My grandfather walked to Evansville from Waverly, Kentucky. You know, a lot of people in Kentucky, you know, moved to Southern Indiana, or people from Southern Indiana moved to Western Kentucky or to Southern Illinois. So if you study your roots really far back, you'll find there's a link to all of us, all in this geographical area. So our goal is to keep adding counties as long as we can keep on finding people to help and finding people as interested as some of you out there, we can keep going. So when you you'll find, so I know you know the wealth of knowledge that's hidden inside an obituary, you know, the church, the place of death, the you know, where they worked, all of those are genealogical needles in a haystack that will help you put things together. But it's a nice resource and it pulls that obituary up. You know, I know we've all gone to a funeral before and we've kept that little flyer that you get or that little obituary that you get, but none of us can go to our closet and find it. It's in the bottom of the drawer in the back room. Not necessarily is that so easy to retrieve, but what Browning's has done is it's made every bit of this information retrievable. I was with my family recently and they were trying to decide where, you know, when their uncle died. And one of my brother-in-law, he said, oh, it was 1929, and you know, back and forth we all went when that death occurred. And I just pulled it up on the website, and I was the only girl in the room, and it was hilarious because I was not even bloodline to this family discussion, and I found the exact date and the entire obituary, and they loved it. They absolutely loved it. So here's our Western Kentucky that we are so tickled to be able to share with you all tonight. We are going to all of those little counties and trying to capture these death records. And it's so nice that it's digital. So we are going backwards. It's going to take us a while. So when you go to look up your folks, it's going to take years to have exactly what we want. But please be patient with us because we're working diligently to move backwards in time on our databases. But when you pull something up, here you have it. See what a wealth of knowledge is here. You know, some people were looking for where did they pass, what hospital, what city. You know, when you're looking for a death certificate, you've got to know the city of death, you've got to know the county of death, because if you're going to prove something to get into the Daughters of American Revolution or something such as that, you've got to know where they were born and where they died. And genealogists is that wealth of knowledge. You might live in a little town called Rodeo Drive, but you got sick and your family drove you into the big city and they took you all the way into Owensboro to go to the big city hospital there in Owensboro, Kentucky. And now your death is in Owensboro, Kentucky, Daviess County. It's not in the county you lived in your entire life. So that confuses genealogists, but these death records and these obituaries truly, truly help. One of the things that we have as a work in progress is that we are working on a history database of Kentucky, which is similar to what we have in our local history database in Indiana. And it will be great. The more interesting history vignettes that we can put digitally, the more we preserve our forefathers and the beautiful land that we live on. So, you know, just when you type in Kentucky, this cemetery pops up, you know, and so this is a beautiful vignette that I found on our website just by typing in Kentucky. And here comes, you know, this is a cemetery that, you know, as long as I've been in the funeral world, I haven't been to this particular cemetery. I know where it is, but I have not had a burial there. But it's nice to be able to come and find data when you're looking for it. The cemetery database that my staff and all of our folks that volunteer and work with, we since we're in the funeral world, we wanted to kind of create, you know, a little database of the cemeteries. Now, Find a Grave does a really good job of that. You know, I won't ever be able to compete with Find a Grave, but locally we are going to these cemeteries and taking pictures of the headstones and documenting who's buried there. You know, it's so nice to be able to pull up the headstone of a relative who's passed when you're trying to, you know, document different things in genealogy work. And so we've picked a few of these smaller cemeteries in our southern Indiana area, and we've been digitizing those monuments and trying to make records. Those are smaller cemeteries where, they won't get as much attention, and those people deserve as much attention as anybody else. And so we started small, but we're going to try to continue to keep categorizing. So, it's nice to be in the comfort of your home and be able to pull up your ancestors just like just like with the click of the button. And so that's what this does for us. We have a veterans database that's really, really unique. And what we've compiled there are veterans who've passed away. We have a man, Mr. Huntley from Pike County, who recorded everybody who died in Pike County as a veteran. He created a very unique collection of those records of the military, and he allowed us to scan and digitize his work, which was nice. But one of the most interesting things is the World War II letters. You know how everything was scanned and surveyed, and you couldn't just send a letter home. There was a team of readers that would, survey your letters. And so there was a minister in town that wrote back and forth to all the military men, and we were able to digitize his letters of the servicemen and who had written home during World War II to this particular minister, sharing them with him, the fears of a young soldier and all that they were going through on the forefronts of the battlegrounds. And just little vignettes like that are interesting, even if you don't know the particular people. Just to read those letters gives you chills, knowing what our young servicemen did to make us free and safe here on this soil. So here's an example of one of the letters to Reverend Rake here. And so, there's hundreds of them in our database, but they're all heartfelt. And so I found it very, very interesting. And the picture to the right is Mr. Huntley, who lives in Pike County. And those are his genealogy volumes of all those veterans. And it's a very beautiful sight of what he was able to collect and how he was able to organize the people who had died in World War II. In Evansville, this is a little bit more of our database. So we're going back, who walked through the city of Evansville and how did they touch lives? And we digitized the nursing school in Evansville because many people from Kentucky came up to go to St. Mary's School of Nursing or Deaconess School of Nursing, and those women are a part of our history. And this is their class. This particular lady featured on the right is my aunt, and her name, she died under the name of Patricia Stone, but that's my aunt Patricia Browning, and she went through the nursing school. But we went to Deaconess, which is another big hospital in Evansville, and we were able to digitize those nurses and how they, walked through Evansville's city and community and made it a better place to live. So it's interesting to see where they're all from too. They're from a lot of southern Indiana areas. There's a young lady from Madisonville, Kentucky, and here's somebody from Tell City, Indiana. So the reach is strong when you go away to school. Bucyrus area is another database we created because Evansville is known for its war effort, and during World War II, we were really the community that built so much for the war effort during World War II. And one of those companies was Bucyrus Erie, and what the Bucyrus Erie made were these buckets. If you see that big shovel up there in the air, they dug the Panama Canal with a bucket that was made in Evansville, Indiana. You just don't realize what's right here in your own backyard. So we were able to get a lot of Bucyrus Erie's records and salvage them and scan them and digitize them, because even though they pulled out of Evansville, they were the bread and butter of our community, and the men that worked there were men who worked hard and gave their life to this particular Bucyrus area as they mechanically built things that are beyond our own imagination at that time. This is another interesting vignette of just the different things that you can pull right out there about the history of the city and the traffic department and the, a gentleman who gave 25 years to this particular company and that particular company. And these are the Bucyrus Aries staff members that worked hard to make that company a better place to work. The Daughters of American Revolution, many genealogists, end up being part of the Daughters of American Revolution. After they do all this research, they find that they are, they're a descendant of someone who fought in our Revolutionary War. And so the Daughters of American Revolution is close to my heart. My mother was a part of it, and she wanted to document history. And what does the Daughters of American Revolution, what is in their bylaws? What is their mission statement? And it is to document history. And so what my mother did in her organization was they documented, in my mom's lifetime, she was able to create and document 9 historical markers across the city of Evansville. So that takes tons of research to go and create a place that deserves this honor, and then validate it and do your research and do the history. And so we have been able to document many historical sites in our little Evansville area. Can you picture a historical marker in your mind when you were a little kid and you were in a station wagon and you drove across the United States and your dad made you stop at every one of those little historical markers and you'd get out and take a picture? Well, that's what we did. It took us forever to get anywhere. My parents loved history and loved travel to places of notoriety, of historical means, and teach us children how to love history. Well, then as I grew up, my mother started documenting it, and it's really, I'm so proud of her now to see what she's done. And, these are things all of us genealogists could start to continue to do to mark these places so that our descendants will know a little bit about their forefathers. In Evansville, we created a business entity database within our browninggenealogy.org, where we went back in time, where people started a business, and it goes back 175 years. And it's kind of interesting to see the blacksmiths and the milkman and all of the different kinds of trades that we don't see as much anymore. But it's interesting. It tells you who was part of the Articles of Incorporation and how different businesses came and went throughout the history of Evansville. We also have an immigration database, which is really interesting, and it has a wealth of knowledge about someone who's moved here to this area. What ship did they come in? What country did they come from? What color were their eyes? And we were fortunate enough that our community allowed us to scan those immigration databases, because those books are like precious. They're locked up in some big safe in our city forefathers' offices. But they knew that we were going to do the right thing with it, and we put that on our website, and it's of great interest to see different descendants and how they arrived on the Evansville forefront. And Western Kentucky and Southern Illinois, they're in this area if they came to Evansville. So this is kind of what a document might look like. This is the county of Warwick in 1898, and this particular Mr. Frederick Green came all the way from Germany, and it's just interesting to see his travels and what he went through to get here. This is a neat thing in Evansville too. You can go to our website and learn more about it, but Ivy Heart Garden and Bird Sanctuary is a neat little museum that's been created here in our Evansville community, and it's a lot of history of the people that made general foods, the cake mix, Swanson and Nunn, and the cake mix that you would go and see in every store. Well, that was founded in Evansville, Indiana by the Ivy Heart family. And so every time us girls who are in this audience make a cake, we'll remember that it started right here in Southern Indiana. The little cake mix was made here, and it's still on the shelves today. The Southern Indiana is marriage and engagement and birth records. That is something that we're reaching into. We realize what genealogists want, we realize what genealogists need, and so we are diligently working to perfect this to be even better able to serve you all. Also, Cynthiana, Indiana is a little community outside of Evansville and Posey County, and it's a work in process, but we've got the opportunity to capture their newspaper, and there's so much history in Cynthiana's newspaper that we want to be able to save it for all of us to have. Another link, work in progress, is this Warwick County, Indiana Orphans Home. You know, we don't want to miss anybody. You know, so many people, especially orphans, they look for their genealogy, and that's something that has to be dear to their hearts to want to know where they came from. And so we're documenting the records of this orphans home, hoping that it will put the pieces of the puzzles together for these people who once lived there. Interstate Finance is another company that we've put on our database. My little grandfather ran to Evansville, Indiana, and lived at the YMCA and started working for a man at age 22 in 1924 as a bookkeeper, and it became Interstate Finance, and then it grew to be American General, and now it's Springleaf. But he and a man from Evansville, Indiana, who started this company and worked there for over 50 years, and it employed many people. So it's a little bit more history of Evansville. The founder of this company, my grandfather, and a man named Richard E. Meyer, his son moved away from Evansville and opened a place in Kentucky called Big Bear. Does anybody ever go water skiing at Big Bear? It's a really neat resort. And anyway, so you never know where your Indiana roots will end up in Kentucky. So there's my little grandpa. He is kind of a caricature of him as he was there at the office. I think that's when he retired. It looks like it was maybe one of the funnies from retirement, but there's his date. He started June of 1924 in January of 1966, and he's got his golf club like he's heading out. Another really interesting vignette that the Browning Genealogy database is doing is we have a YouTube channel where we are capturing historical lectures. We're interviewing veterans and trying to get their story, keep it alive, and lots of history, lots of Indiana history, Kentucky history, veteran history. The lectures are wonderful, and you can go to the YouTube channel and listen to lectures of great interest to many, many folk. So we have a mailing list that tells you what we're doing. We try to have all kinds of different training and seminars where you learn how to become an expert at maneuvering through our website and finding things you want, and all the little tips that we have, we love to share with you. And so if you sign up to our mailing list, you might find out, you know, a few little things, or be able to come to one of our training seminars on how to become even more adept at these different databases, because there's so much in there and it's so much fun. And I so have enjoyed getting to share with you our passion and our history, and how much we love genealogy, and how much we hope that our website could be a part of your little favorites on your home screen, because there's things in there that will come close to your heart someday. Thank you for allowing me to share with you, and I think this might be time for us to open up for questions and such. So I'm going to turn this back over to the question and answer facilitator.
Thanks, Jeannie. And I'm just kind of blown away at and inspired by, you know, the impact that one family and one business, what you all have done. I mean, part of what, when I started to learn about all of the different things you all were doing, I was like, I have got to get them to come talk to the society for multiple reasons. One being, there's so many families that connect between Kentucky and Indiana. I mean, when I was doing research on my family in Hancock County and in Henderson County, you know, they get married and someone goes to work in Evansville and back and forth, and then they're buried over here, and so while, you know, we have these places called Indiana and Kentucky, it's a region, and you know, I think sometimes researchers, they don't think that way. They think in terms of like, oh, well, that's not the location I'm looking for. Well, sometimes you have to look in that location because that might be where you're going to find the information you're looking for. But I'm just blown away though at what you all are doing, and the insight that I am walking away from this with is the relationships that, you know, these entities in your community, they are trusting you to help them preserve their history. And I mean, you're doing this in so many different places. So I just I wanted to put a spotlight on the Browning Genealogy websites and your foundation tonight, because I think it's really important. And the Kentucky Genealogical Society, you know, when I asked Jeannie to speak to us, and Kira, who is also on, who has helped tremendously behind the scenes to kind of help us pull this together tonight, you know, Kira was like, well, we don't charge for our talks. I was like, we're making a donation. So you're going to be getting a donation from the Kentucky Genealogical Society. Thank you for the talk, but also just keep up the work, because you're doing great work. And there have been several comments that have come in already from our members saying, can you expand into additional counties? And I'm sure if you got more resources and volunteers, that is always a possibility. So
Yes.
Let's see here. Okay, so we have lots of accolades coming in. Folks just saying thank you. Let me read a few. We've got a few questions. Do you have any records from Grayson County, which was a burned county? That's a question from Trish Aaron. You know anything about that one?
You know, I don't, not off of the top of my head. Kira, would you happen to?
I think Grayson County is one that we have. Let me see here real quick. Yep, Grayson is listed, so we do have some obits in Grayson County. They're more than likely going to be more recent obits. We haven't really gone backward a lot in the Kentucky counties that we have. They're mostly grabbing them from the newspapers as they come out regularly currently. But we're always interested in going backwards. So if anybody has any data they want to supply us with for any of these counties, please feel free to do so. And if you want to volunteer, we'd love that as well.
And let's see, several more accolades coming in. Lots of folks saying, I had no idea the scope of the impact. Folks thought, oh, I just thought it was just Evansville. No, if this was just Evansville, I'm telling you, you really need to spend time on their site, because it is amazing what they have. Let's see here. Okay. Just a lot of accolades.
Well, that's
yeah, lots of folks wanting you to expand. with the counties that they want you to expand into, but yeah. Let's see.
Yes.
Okay, here's it. Now, this is not necessarily about Browning, but maybe you might be able to help this. This was just a question about funeral homes. Are funeral homes required to keep records when they are sold and purchased by another entity?
the records come under the management of the funeral home per se. And so there are many funeral homes that have good records and have kept records immaculate. And there are some that, maybe don't have the best of records going backwards. Now they have to keep the financial records together on anyone who has pre-planned or prepaid for a funeral. But actually, people really turn to my website for a lot of records. For them off premise, and it's a lot easier to go to my website than it is to go in their record file.
Yeah, I was researching someone out in California in Los Angeles.
That's the highway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in Los Angeles, is that where his call is from?
No, but it was interesting because when I was researching them, I was trying to find out where the funeral records were, and the funeral home had been bought and sold, I want to say 4 or 5 times in about 100-year period. And so you almost had to do like the genealogy of that funeral home. But then after going through that process, and it took me a while, it wasn't something I could figure out overnight. I had to do some research and read some newspaper articles. I found out who had the records, and I was able to find these, and they still had these 110-year-old funeral home records. So sometimes you have to kind of do the genealogy of the funeral home and who did buy it and sell it. And you might have to do some research like in newspapers or, business transactions that occurred.
At the present moment, Kira and Kathy, who are our genealogists on staff, they are scanning a funeral home that was in Evansville's presence from 1850 to 1970, but they closed in 1970. And we finally got access to their old records, and we're scanning them as we speak. So you're exactly right. You have to follow the history of the funeral home and who is the owner, and then where do they store the records, and how accessible are they?
A lot of folks are just writing in to say thank you. They have fond memories of someone who they lived in Evansville. Robert shared that he lived on Englehart Avenue, 2 miles from the plant there that you referenced, Janine.
Yes.
Yeah. Linda just shared, this is amazing. And yes, it is, Linda. That's I've been researching for a long time, and again, I'd never heard of the Browning databases, and I will say a yes and to everything that Jeannie has shared, which is if you are ever in the Evansville neck of the woods, you need to plan to spend a day at the Willard. That is just an unbelievably good research library, and the staff there are phenomenal. You could probably spend a couple days there if you have some folks from that area, but or if you have folks who lived in the counties in Kentucky near Evansville, because they have an amazing collection of Kentucky records and Kentucky books, and they're not in you have to sometimes think about places near cities near where you're researching. There were things that I found in Evansville that I have not been able to find at the Kentucky Historical Society in Frankfort, or at the Filson Historical Society in Louisville, or at public libraries in Kentucky, but they had it in Evansville. I'm not saying Evansville has everything, but my point is sometimes what the information is you're looking for, it may not be exactly where you think it is. So look at different places near there, universities or cities that are near that area. Okay.
Yes.
Let's see.
We had
just lots of accolades. I think we had 196 folks on, and just a lot of accolades coming in. Belinda Morgan said the Browning database and resources will be so helpful to me as I research the genealogy of my oldest granddaughter's other side of the family who are from that region? Yes, Belinda, they will. And you know, a lot of the times you may have ancestors who were farmers, and then when the 1920s and 30s hit, they went to work for a plant, and they moved from a county in Western Kentucky to Evansville to get for work. You kind of have to think about as the economy was developing, where people may have moved around in that region too. They didn't always just stay in the same location.
Exactly.
Wow. Here's a question. Do you have any orphanage records?
Well, we have the new orphanage that's the only one that we've been able to work on we have just added to that. And so that's the only one orphanage we were able to find, and that was in our Warwick County here in this state of Indiana. But as many as we can find, that's another goal that we have, is to continue to incorporate orphanages into our database.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Deborah is asking, and this was cut off, but she was asking about orphanage records from Louisville. Deborah, you definitely want to check out the Kentucky Genealogical Society website, the link for the Kentucky Baptist records at the Filson. There were a number of Catholic orphanages in Louisville. There's a booklet that some wonderful volunteer, she went around to a number of those Catholic orphanages. They allowed her to access the orphan records. She typed them up on like just 8.5 by 11s, and I've only ever seen one copy of this record, and it's at the Louisville Free Public Library. And I had a great grandmother who was in an orphanage in Louisville. Cannot find any records of her from that orphanage. It's now called Maryhurst. But I did find her in that record at the Louisville Free Public Library. So good luck on that one, Bra. So just lots of more accolades. I'm going to thank you, Jeannie and Kara, for spending time with us this evening. I want to thank all of our members for participating. We did record this program, and it will be available and accessible on our website in case you were having technology issues. Again, we thank you for what you're doing. We're going to make a donation to the Browning Foundation to continue. Hope you continue your work, and we are on your mailing list, so we appreciate the updates that you all send us. And with that, Jeannie, I'm gonna say thank you. And if you want to say anything before you head out, and then I'll have a couple little housekeeping items for any folks from the society that want to stick around that I'll go through.
I just want to say thank you, everybody, and it's been an honor to be with you tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie, and thank you, Kara. You guys did an awesome job. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you all. They told me, they were like, this is the first time we've ever done a webinar. I was like, you're going to do great, and they did. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And if anybody ever has any questions, don't hesitate to click that Contact Us tab on our website and send us an email. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Thank you. And they're very responsive. I contacted them several years ago, and someone responded within a day. They were awesome. So thank you all so much. And we'll close, and then a couple little bit of housekeeping. Just a reminder, Finding Your Celtic Ancestors, that's throughout the month of March. 5 wonderful lectures with Hamlet Guy Holland, Chris Patton, and Morris Gleason. If you're a member, it's $20. If you are not a member, we encourage you to join because you'll save $20. It's $40 for everybody else. If you know of anyone who has a Celtic ancestors, Irish or Scottish ancestors, there's lots of them in Kentucky, please, share this with them, because it's a really unique opportunity to hear from these educators very focused on this topic. And then folks always want to know what's on the horizon. I'll share with you our program schedule we have coming up, and I have some additions that did not make the slide, but I'll just sort of talk to them. Once we finish the March series on finding your Celtic ancestors, our next speaker will be Peggy Lauritsen on Wild, Wonderful West Virginia. You know, we have a lot of members in our society that are in West Virginia or from West Virginia. And so if you ever know of a topic germane to West Virginia, please feel free to send it to me, because there's a lot of, when it comes to Eastern Kentucky and West Virginia, there's a lot of crossover there, and we're always on the lookout for topics specific to West Virginia. Then we've got Dr. Shelley Murphy. She'll be coming back to talk to us about using timelines. Cynthia Meharry, she's going to be talking to us. This is going to be for new researchers. So if you're just getting started in research, or if you need a refresher on how to get started, Cynthia is going to be doing a talk on that. That talk, Getting a Good Start, that will be free and open to the public. So if you know of someone who has been interested in family genealogy, but you know, maybe they need a little bit of help or nudging, I would encourage you to share that program with them. It's on May 12th. It'll be, like I said, free, open to the public with Cynthia. We have on May 24th, Dr. Jonathan Coleman. He is leading the LGBTQ archive for Kentucky in Lexington. Back on June 2nd, Pamela Holland is going to come back again and do a talk for us on DNA painter and chromosome mapping. So this is really for folks who have taken Y-DNA test through Family Tree DNA. And if you haven't done that and you need some encouragement to do so, if it's something you've been thinking about, you should go ahead and do that now, so that you can get your results back in time for Pamela's talk on June 2nd. If you, these talks will all be recorded, by the way. So if you're not able to attend the lives, they're recorded and they're available on our website in the member portal. And then we've got Melissa Barker on the 13th. She's going to be talking to us about the home archivist and all the things you need to know about, you know, maintaining your home archive collection. Most people, they don't realize like the volume of archival records that exist in homes throughout Kentucky. So that's a really good lecture coming up. Judy Namramoon will be talking to us on the 26th of July on Native American research. And then we've got LaBrenda Garrett Nelson, October 25th on planning research. What I want to share with you this evening is the month of August will be our Kentucky research seminar series. And we're going to have a number of really great talks. We have a talk from one of our new members who is now the research room supervisor at the KDLA in Frankfurt, Rusty Heckman. He's going to be talking to us. We have a talk from Patrick Lewis, who is the director of collections at the Filson Historical Society in Louisville. He's going to be talking to us about just a whole lot of Kentucky archival research collections that some of you may not know anything about that you might want to learn about for your research. We have a talk in August from one of our members from Boone County, who is a public librarian in Boone County. She's going to be talking to us about researching African American ancestors, and that should be a really good talk. There's a whole lot that have not been announced, but that will be announced in the next week or two. So if you just follow the website, you'll see all the August talks that are going to be announced. We're also bringing back some speakers that have talked to the society before. They'll be talking in September and October. Folks that are names that I know when you hear them, you'll be excited to hear that they're coming back to talk to us again. So it's going to be an action-packed year. we've got 2 webinars going every month, the series in March and in August. You get all this for $20. It's a great value. Hopefully you are enjoying your experience as a member. If you are, share this with someone else. There's very few things you get these days for $20 annually that I think gives you this much value. So, thanks everybody, and I hope you have a good evening and take care. Bye-bye.